Page number 166 continued. "Oh, sleep, sleep," he cried out in his soul, and he closed his eyes deliberately tried. But though his eyes were tired and his bones weary, they were too weary for sleep. His body fevered and perspired. His grasp for breath turned on his side and saw Hari fast asleep. He turned to simulate the appearance of Hari's body, thinking that by copying the right posture on the pavement he could sleep. For a moment he rested thus, histrionically. The image of Hari's wife stood before him veiled. He opened his eyes. It was of no use. He felt he must get up and rush away somewhere beyond the confines of the street. Somewhere there was a whiff of air to breathe, but he was afraid he would stumble on the bodies which lay along the pavement, and then there would be a scene. He tossed about on his stone bed, flinging his elastic haunches from side to side till he felt his hip bones ache with the impact of hardness against hardness. Then he plunged his head onto his hands and lay down face downwards. The suffocating darkness descended on him. A cool breeze blew through the street at dawn. It penetrated into the bodies of the coolies, lepers and beggars, paupers, through the rents and holes in the flimsy sheets that covered them. They shivered and stirred uncomfortably, or huddled against each other, or shrank into knots, or merely turned on their sides. Another gust. The naked lepers moaned. The others clutched their garments closer, or awakened suddenly from the intoxication of the sweet early morning sleep, thankful to God that even in this their discomfort, as they murmured, "Ram Ram, Shri Shri." The breeze which came from the sea soon became a windy draught. End of page 166. Now page 167. The names of God multiplied on the lips of the wretches, because ritually every spasm of cough, every mouthful of stale spittle, every blow on the nose is in India an occasion for the invocation of the Almighty. Those who were not awakened by the noise of an asthmatic or consumptive cough, by the sharp thunderous spurts of spitting, or by the loud and vehement blowing of the noses, or by the multifarious names of God, were wakened by the arm of law, which, baton in hand, came to clear the pavements near Chowpatty. Munnu was one of them, Hari having got up already. "Ram Ram, brother," agreed Hari. "We should be on our way to the factory." "Are the children awake?" asked Munnu with enthusiasm and alacrity. "If not, I will carry them." "We will rouse the affliction of God," said Hari. "They must learn to wake up early. They will have to go to work at the factory before sunrise every morning. Why did I go away from Bombay 4 months ago, if not to fetch them, so that, like the children of other men, they should also begin to earn their living? Thus only can we make both ends meet." Then he looked towards the passageway where his wife had kept watch while the children slept all night. "Why, Lakshmi, are the children awake?" The women began to shake the children gently, but the little ones only moaned and stiffened. Hari walked towards the gully menacingly. "I will pick them up. Don't disturb their sleep," said Lakshmi, leaning to protect them against her husband. "You can't bear brats of 8 and 9, snapped Hari, and he leapt at the little ones, picked them up by the arms and shook them. Their hands dangled limply. They only sobbed without opening their eyes, and without relaxing the dead weight of sleep that made their bodies sag. "I will bear one, as I did last night, brother Hari," said Munnu, feeling uncomfortable at what seemed likely to develop into a domestic wrangle. Hari picked up the tin trunk while Munnu came and lifted the body, a firm-featured creature with an indigo shade of skin. Lakshmi lifted the girl. Hari rolled the bedding and the cavalcade moved on. End of page 167. Now page 168. The town was coming to life in the streets. White men, brown men, chocolate men, black men in loincloths, in short trousers were jostling along. Some opulent merchants were being carried in motor cars. Troops of schoolboys and girls in uniforms were strolling along, now leisurely and unwillingly, now eagerly. The ostentatious splendor of the jumbled styles of architecture was realizing the significance of its garish stupidity under the flood of sunlight that spread from the heavens. Munnu did not attend to the hubbub consciously. He was beginning to take the city of Bombay for granted, though the deep recesses of the dark rooms behind the doors and windows in the heart of the houses seemed to arouse his curiosity. They seemed peopled by swarms of men and women, layer upon layer, in a sort of vertical overcrowding, literally on top of each other. They did not greet each other as they walked in and out of the buildings. Strange, he reflected. The southerners are strange people, not realizing why they were aloof from each other. They walked slowly, listlessly, as if they had not quite awakened from their sleep. Munnu hurried into a quick pace once or twice. They walked slowly, listlessly, as if they had not quite awakened from their sleep. Munnu hurried into a quick pace once or twice, urged by the eager impulses that ebbed and flowed in him. But his head seemed dizzy in this atmosphere, his muscles loose and unstrung. He looked at Hari. The old man's movements were mechanical. The energy in Hari's legs seemed to have sapped completely, as the strongest effort at quickening his pace that the old man made seemed to result merely in the flashing of his bare back legs without any conspicuous hastening. His wife seemed hampered by the weight of her daughter, by her heavy accordion-pleated skirt, and by the natural weakness of her sex. I wish I could relieve her of the burden of that child, Munnu said to himself as he felt a blast of steaming, bubbling heat descend on his back with a furious impact. The sun had risen behind him over the roofs of the Bombay houses and spread on to an uprise, drying up Munnu's liver in the process, sucking up all the energy out of him and giving a parched taste into his mouth. His veins swelled as he struggled towards the incline. He willed a kind of nervous energy into the bones and strode on quickly. End of page 168. Now page 169. The morning mist was lifting. The surface of the uprise was broken by deep pits on the sides and little mounds topped by scattered palm trees, whose green was tinted an unearthly pallor by the glowing gold of the sun. But distance lent enchantment to this view, for the ascent to the plateau disclosed on the left a sewerage farm, besides which thousands of hides were tanned and dried with dung by the colony of leather workers who lived in a cluster of mud huts, and on the right were rows of vast grey tenements, tenements, tenements which housed with thousands of low straw huts at their feet, hiding their rents and the holes in their sides with ragged jute cloth hangings, all enveloped by the clouds of smoke which spurted from the tall chimneys of countless mills. Not far now, only a mile, said Hari, panting for breath and rolling his eyeballs, over which the perspiration flowed. But your mile is in the south seems longer than our northern mile, said Munnu, flushing light-hearted. Shall we live in one of those big houses or in a straw hut? Asked Hari's wife, swinging her hips slowly with each stride. Be patient, you will be lucky if we can get a job, said Hari. peevish and irascible, with the fatigue of the journey and the fear of the impending interview with the foreman sahib. They walked up a roadstead of broken stones and dust, past small hovels, straw huts which spread from 100 to 200 yards from the rubbish heaps at their rear ends to the masses of tall tenements. The high four-storied buildings were plain enough and devoid of the city styles, but crumbling on the sides and seamed with mortar that looked a leprous white against the sooty black of the main structure of the brick. And then they were in full view of their objective. "That is the Sirjabite factory to which we are going," said Hari, raising a finger towards a chimney taller than the rest, which stood rolling out volumes of smoke across the sky eastwards into India's vast unknown. Munnu followed the direction of Hari's finger, but his glance lost itself among the factory roofs, which undulated like low hilltops to the peak points of conic chimneys. A swarm of clamorous crows was screaming around the choking alleyways of the straw huts, by which sat a few semi-naked men and women praying. It seemed after their ablutions. 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 End of page 169, now page 170. There was not a well or a pump near, and Munnu wondered where they had bathed. He looked deeper into the space and saw, behind a small hillock, a sunken pool of murky green water over which a thick slimy cream had settled. The crows wheeled over the pond in great profusion, pecking at the source of the cows and bullocks, who either sat in the water or grazed on the grass by the festering marshes around the water. Munnu was fascinated by the diving antics of the little urchins who ran about. He recalled the days when he himself had bathed in the low water of the Bias in his village. He felt an irresistible impulse to strip naked and jump into the water. "Shall we have a bath here?" he said to Hari impetuously, standing by the pool and overcoming the stink that oozed from it with his naive enthusiasm. "No, brother, now we are in a hurry. We can bathe here every day if we get a cottage near the pond," said Hari. Munnu accepted the wise suggestion more easily as he advanced a few steps and saw a huge rubbish heap piled with broken bricks and paper and broken grass, merging with all its rottenness into the slimy water. "Only another mile," said Hari, consoling his followers. This mile, however, was only a bare 500 yards from the half-finished thoroughfare on which they had walked, by a rutted pathway that ended at the shadow of a high wall topped by pieces of broken glass which reflected the rays of the sun by day and kept the thieves off at night. But what a 500 yards! On the plain cut in two by the parallel lines of narrow gauge railway were scattered rusty rails, heaps of dead coal, and all the refuse which the factory emitted. EMITTED. Under cover of these and of the deep pits and puddles of mud into which the feet sank and stuck at little distances, sat men relieving themselves, and on the even surfaces fuel cakes of cow dung, dried and festered with a stink that was unbearable. Munnu's heart contracted as if some inner instinct had gathered him into a knot so that he might remain safe against the disintegration of filth and dung outside. The inscription, "Sir George White Cotton Mills," cut in big broad letters, hung on the arch of a closed iron gateway. "Halt!" shouted a tall Pathan, striking the ground with the butt end of a double-barreled gun as he stood. Belts of cartridge, now page 171, slung across his shoulders to his waist, over his gold-braided red velvet waistcoat, his baggy trousers rustling in the breeze under the long tunic, over the turned up solid putwar shoes. The loose ends of his blue silk turban tied round the embroidered kulla, which imparted to his ferocious face a colour darker than the North Indians. Lakshmi flew into a panic and would have aborted the child if she had been carrying one in her belly. Munnu became aware of the authority, not of the Angrezi Sarkar, because the man was not wearing a uniform, but of the mill, especially as he could see that behind the iron gates everything seemed orderly and well organized, from the clean cut of the factory building to the even shadows it cast on the compound. Hari seemed to know the warden of the marshes. "Salam, Khan Sahib," he said, exalting the dignity of the guard with a little more respect than that which is implicit in conventional flattery. "I am Hari, the coolie who worked here 4 months ago and went away to fetch his family. I want to see the Chimta Sahib, foreman." "Acha," said Nadir Khan contemptuously, and turned to a young Parsi errand boy who sat dressed English fashion on a stool by the wooden watch box. "Lal Kaka, go and tell Chimta Sahib there is an old coolie wanting employment." The boy had awakened on Munnu's shoulder, and the girl on Lakshmi's arms had come to life too. They grovelled in the dust of the road in complete unconcern of everything. Munnu sat on a milestone with his face averted from the factory, looking back on the ups and downs of the dung heaps, the coal, the broken girders, and the pits of filth in the wasteland that he had left behind. The impressions of the strange scenes through which he had passed, of the confusing variety of the things he had seen during the last few days, forgotten though they were in the depths of his soul, seemed to come out and people the earth around him, till he felt crushed and alone in his heart and wanted to get up and run away, run like mad across the hills of Kangra, or go to the simple main street of Shamnagar, or even into the confused but familiar world of Daulatpur. But as he looked across the factories, there seemed something so fascinating in their bare, straightforward look that he felt at home. End of page 171. Now page 172. There was a mysterious superior life wrapped under them, and the tall chimneys seemed to him wonders of architecture as he speculated on the forms of the machines which must lie in their hearts, working to the heat of the furnaces, mightier than the ovens he had raked for ashes in the morning in the factory at Daulatpur. Prabha should have had a structure like that built for the ejection of smoke. Munnu thought. Then there would not have been any quarrels between the wife of Rai Bahadur, Sir Todarmal, and the master would not have got beaten at the orders of his son at the Kotwali. But the sight of a long brick chimney in the heart of a city like Daulatpur seemed incongruous to his mind. "Old city," he muttered to himself contemptuously. "Bombay is not old and narrow like Daulatpur. It is nice. It is indeed, as the coolie in the vegetable market said, it is in these mills that he must have said that high wages are paid." He fancied he would be able to live in one of those big houses with countless windows which they had passed. "The Sahib is very nice," Hari said to reassure Munnu after they had waited for about 20 minutes in silence.